Okay, it is 11 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. This is the Portfolio Management webinar. It's going to be with myself and Sam Ayers. Sam, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So hi, my name's Sam. I'm a solutions architect here at Valiantus, also a safe practice consultant, and then also an Atlassian tools expert. So happy to be with you guys today.
And my name is Jacqueline Lauren. I'm the Director of Training here. I'm also an SPC, and throughout my career have been portfolio manager for multiple companies. Sam and I actually have helped several companies both set up tooling in the portfolio region and then help them understand the right process to follow to support those tools the best way. So we're looking forward to talking to you guys today. Today, we're going to cover why you would care about project portfolio management, the tools, some deep dives into the tools, and then we're going to do a little wrap up of tool options, and then we'll open it up for questions. So, why portfolio management? Why do you care? I'm guessing if you're watching this webinar, you already know why you care. But first of all, let's ground ourselves in what it is. We have heard the term used multiple different ways over our conversations with customers in the past. So, what it is, how we're talking about it today, is it is a company trying to understand all of the projects that are currently going on. It's really just a matter of bringing transparency to all the things that your teams are working diligently on. And you probably need portfolio management solutions, a solution, if you're asking yourself the questions of what are my teams working on? I know they're busy, but are they working on the right things? Can I accept a new project right now? We hear that all the time. I don't know if we can accept a new project, and I don't know what date to tell the customer because I feel like no matter what I tell them, we're always a little bit off.
Yeah.
Are your dates slipping all the time? If towards the end of a project, maybe the last month, you're starting to realize that your teams are not as close as they thought they were, or they're finding scope that they didn't think was there. And of course, that always leads to the fire drills that we all know and hate. The last couple months of a project, the teams are working around the clock to try and make up that time. Why we spend the time and effort to set up portfolios and the process that goes with it is because you are going to see an alignment of work to strategy. And the way we do this, we talk about transparency, but all the tools that we're going to talk about today, it helps to link the work from the team level up to a initiative level or whatever that top level is called. It's also going to help you visualize what your capacity is. So as you have new demands come into your backlog, you can see where your teams are already fully utilized and what you would need to pull out. There's a lot of great dependency management options, which Sam is going to show us in just a little bit here, which helps us understand what teams, how we need to prioritize and bring work into WIP. It's all going to help us become a lot more predictable because as we start to break down these year-long projects into smaller, more like month size or 3-month size chunks, then we can start to really accurately predict how long this is going to take. Our stakeholders, our customers, they're going to get the visibility that the teams are halfway done with this feature that they were asked to do, or there's a holdup here. It just allows, I keep saying the word visibility, but it really does shine light on the whole process and helps us see much sooner when we start to run into problems, which of course is going to lead to less fire drills, and our risk is going to be a lot less because we're going to pick up on the small risks as we go. So it's not just tools. Tools are a very, very important part of this. They are going to bring the organization that we need to really get our arms around what we're talking about today. But don't forget that there are also people, then process that we need to consider. And actually, we put those first before the tools, because if we don't get the buy-in from the people, we don't do the change management, they're not going to utilize the tools like we need to, and they're not going to keep the information up to date. So that's not going to be as helpful for us. Process, we need the right process to help support these tools. Because these tools are fantastic and powerful, but we need to see them, we need to look at them, we need to talk about them as a group, which of course leads into the process conversation. The great thing that we're going to talk about, everything we're talking about today, is minimal changes to the team. A lot of it is right above that team layer. So it's really targeting leadership, and depending on how your teams work today, in most cases, the teams don't really see any change to their day-to-day work. We also recommend that you start with a smaller group within your portfolio. Maybe that's a team or a couple of teams, and then you can really refine the process, figure out how you want these tools to be set up, and then roll it out to everybody in your portfolio or portfolios, because then it'll just be a much smoother process. And finally, and sometimes good, sometimes bad, be ready to organize on that leadership level, because everything that we ask our teams to do on a weekly basis, with getting everything that they're working on in Jira or whatever your tool is that you're using, we're going to be asking our leadership to also put all of their priorities in Jira. And that's what this is all going to depend on. So the tool options that we are going to cover today, we're going to, Sam is going to give us a demo and talk about advanced roadmaps, structure and structure Gantt, big picture and big picture enterprise. And then finally, I'll briefly review Jira Align. We won't go super in depth into that because it is so complicated. We actually have quite a few other webinars just dedicated to Align. All right, let's get into the tools.
All right,
Sam?
Thanks, Jackie.
Of course.
All right, so just starting out, before we jump into the actual demonstration, I just want to offer just a brief overview of what advanced roadmaps is and does. And if I could sum it up in a sentence, so advanced roadmaps is a cross-project road mapping and visualization tool with some team level capacity capabilities baked in. It is available in Jira Data Center and also within Jira Cloud Premium. And just quick shameless plug as a side note, if you're still on server instances of Jira, you may know that server is getting deprecated early next year. And so we hope that you're already planning a cloud migration from Data Center, but if not, our team here at Valiantis is well-versed in migrations, and we're more than happy to help you walk through that process. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions in that arena. So going back to the tool, as far as organization is concerned, the primary object is a plan. So each plan within advanced roadmaps has its own definable scope, views, scenarios, and permissions. And what's nice about advanced roadmaps is that you can commit changes to Jira from your plan, going back to the fact that, again, this is a native Atlassian and/or Jira tool. So some really great seamless integration there. That being stated, this is something we get asked about a lot with this tool. It's not a Gantt chart. It is truly a live road mapping tool. So for example, if I move something out date-wise within the plan, it's only going to move that specific item out and not everything else along with it. So it really is truly just another way to visualize work. So with that, and as promised, let's go ahead and jump into advanced roadmaps. And let me maximize my window here. Okay, so in advanced roadmaps, the plan is essentially broken up into 3 different parts. So you have the issue hierarchy that you see on the left. You have the field section in the middle that I can expand here just by kind of adjusting my window size here. And then you have the roadmap section that you see over here that should be somewhat familiar to you if you've looked at road mapping tools before. And so on the left, you see the roll-up of story and bug, for example, through Epic up to an initiative layer up here at the top. If I wanted to change this view, you actually have several different view options, and you can actually create subsequent views within Advanced Roadmap. So for example, if I go to the Epic Planning view, I see that the view helps me plan specifically at the epic level, but still having my eye on what those epics are tied to parent-wise. So I can still see the parent field and what's populated within that field here. And then some of these other fields I can expand and see, what I want to see here, depending on who I'm presenting to or what kind of planning event that I'm undertaking at the current time. So in the middle, we can add or remove additional fields here. So you can see I've obviously expanded them. I can also add new fields. I've got a drop down here. I can see what's available to me. I have a nice toggle here that's denoting whether or not it's a custom field or a Jira system field, similar to what you see with components and then business value here. And then I can also manage the custom fields and add additional fields. And what's really, really nice in one sense is that you can add, you have this wonderful menu actually where you can look at all the fields that are supported. And then if you have a custom field that you're seeing as not an option to add, you can actually see whether or not it's supported by toggling on this show unsupported fields option here. So let me jump back to the plan. And let me go back to my initiative planning view. So let's talk about date behavior. So timeline bars appear on the roadmap based on manually updated start and end dates. So let me expand my start and end date fields here so you can see what I'm talking about. And that being stated, parents can actually inherit their children's dates. So for example, what I can do is on this initiative, for example, I can dither out this target start and target end dates. And then you see what we kind of call the barber pole visualization here. And if I remove this epic out, it's going to move that parent out date-wise as well, which is kind of neat. Simply just by dithering out those dates. You can manually update start and end dates in the field section. So on Alpha 5, for example, this user story, I can pick a start date of today. And let's say I only need until tomorrow to complete it. Then I've got a user story over here that I can see within my timeline right away. You can also click and drag the bar to update the start and end dates. So if I go to this user story, for example, and kind of drag this out a little bit, I can elongate my date window. And something interesting too as well that really helps with planning, maybe you don't have complete information in the way of a target start or target end date. So in Alpha 5, if I choose a start date of today, you can see that the bar just kind of fades off into oblivion, which is kind of nice in one sense. You still have some kind of visual representation of your date there. And then conversely, I can add a target end date as well. So let's try to add one a little bit further out just to see what that would look like. In the same story, you kind of see it fading into that date. So kind of neat. Even if you only have piecemeal information, you still have visualization options. So while we're here, let's talk about dependency behavior. So dependencies are handled via Jira links. And as a side note, updating an issue's dates will not update its dependents. So just a quick side note there. But Jira links don't achieve what we would expect with what we would see in a Gantt chart. So with Gantt obviously having start to finish, etc. So again, just plugging again that it's not a Gantt chart. But dependencies, so let's actually create one now so you can see what that looks like, show in this way of string between issues on the plan. And if I click into the dependency itself, you can see what kind of issue linking relationship is represented between those issues. And if I were to commit these changes to Jira, which I'll show you how to do in just a moment, you would see this represented within these Jira issues as an issue linking relationship. One of the coolest things I think about this application is there's this wonderful dependencies report that kind of displays almost kind of in a Visio chart kind of manner. So if I go over here to the left panel and click on dependencies report, You have so many different options on how to view dependencies. You can view them hierarchically. You can look at them by epic or project or team. You can also look at just specific project dependencies. But this is a report that executives really like to see. We found people get really excited about this report.
Our customers love this.
Customers love it. You can also view sprint dependencies specific, so really can get pretty granular here, and just a really nice optional visualization. So let's go back to our plan here. So let's move on to talking about sandbox capability within advanced roadmaps. And what's really kind of neat, and what I really personally like about this application, is that effectively everything you do within advanced roadmaps is done in a sandbox. To commit the changes you make within the plan. So you can see actually, and you may have noticed in the top right, this number counter and review changes increasing as I've made changes within the plan. So again, I haven't committed anything to Jira yet, but if I wanted to, I could click review changes and then actually save these changes within Jira. And so what's really neat about this is you can almost administrate your project or multiple projects across your instance, depending on your access. And commit those changes to Jira and almost in a Jira administrative way, which is kind of neat. And in this case too, I can also toggle on or off whether I want to send update notifications. So that could obviously get very busy very quick depending on how many issues you are updating. So just something to be aware of there. You also have an extra layer of what I would say sandbox capability within advanced roadmaps, leveraging scenarios. So if I click over here on the left, you can see that I've created 2 scenarios of best case or worst case. And you can essentially see, so just take a quick mental snapshot of what you see over here. If I go to the worst case scenario, you can see that the changes that I make between the 2 scenarios are completely autonomous from one another. So pretty neat. So again, just by default, effectively everything you're doing is kind of in a sandbox, but then you also have this extra layer of scenarios. So let's talk about resourcing behavior and capabilities. So within advanced roadmaps, resourcing happens at the team level and not the individual level. So that's also something we get asked about a lot with this tool. So just to be clear there. It's important to highlight too that you're limited to resourcing at the team level, like I just mentioned. So let me go into the Teams menu here, and we can take a look at what some of this looks like. So within this menu, this is where I can manage existing teams, add new teams, and then also manage a teams or a team level capacity. So if I go into the beta team, for example, and click team settings, this is where I can add team members. I can also choose my issue source, whether I'm pulling from a board. In this case, I'm pulling from a board, and then I can choose my planning style, whether I'm choosing Scrum or Kanban. And then this is where I can designate my sprint length and my team's typical capacity level in the way of points. And real quickly, I want to show you something really cool in the capacity manager view. So let's go back to the plan. And there's this wonderful view called, once it loads here, capacity planning. And speaking of adjusting capacity, you can actually click on a sprint and actually adjust the sprint capacity points right here within the plan too. So really cool view in the way of capacity planning and ability to manage that on a sprint by sprint basis within the Advanced Roadmaps plan. Something to note here, juxtaposed to another application I'm going to show you shortly, there is no skills capability within Advanced Roadmaps. So in another tool called Big Picture that I'm going to show you, there is this functionality where you can assign a skill to an individual. So you can't actually do that within this tool. So shifting gears a bit, Advanced Roadmaps has this really cool feature that I like to show called Auto Scheduler. And the Auto Scheduler does exactly what its name suggests, and it actually does so taking into account rank, assignee, story points, sprint info, and a few other things. So just to show you this very quickly, if I click on Auto Schedule, and let's say I'm happy with the selections that I've made here, I can preview my results, and it's going to think for a moment, and then what you'll see is essentially a series of kind of purple barber poles within the plan here where it's making suggestions on how I should schedule. So kind of a neat functionality there. All right, so let's jump back to our slideshow. And I want to kind of wrap up the advanced roadmaps demonstration by just quickly rattling off a few other things about advanced roadmaps that may be helpful to you when you're finding yourself in a situation where you need to make a decision surrounding what planning tools you'd like to use. So with regard to estimation, you can estimate your work with story points or time tracking. However, you can't do a hybrid of the two within one plan. There's also no native conversion of story points to time, but you could hypothetically write an automation rule to do this if you're familiar with automation for Jira. There's no critical path functionality, and you'll see that in the next two tools that I'm about to show you, but there is that awesome dependency report that I showed you previously that might be helpful to you in that manner. There's also no baseline functionality in advanced roadmaps. It's always live reporting from Jira. So that could be a pro or a con, depending on how you look at it. There's no earliest start, and there's no cross-plan resource view. So again, just to kind of sum things up, some deciding factors that you might want to walk away with. You are working with a tool that is native to Atlassian and Jira, and so synchronization is basically seamless. So that is a big win, in my humble opinion. It is not a Gantt chart, so if you're looking for a Gantt chart and all the functionality that typically resides within that sphere, you're not going to find it here. It is great for roadmaps. Team level resourcing is a big plus, and there are some great options for showing visualizations. All right, let's jump into Structure and Structure Gantt. So Structure is a issue hierarchy app with a very robust Gantt chart add-on called Structure Gantt. And it is important to note that I'm actually referring to two separate add-ons out in the Atlassian marketplace here. So if you were to just leverage just Structure, you would see basically just the left side of this screenshot here and not the Gantt chart on the right. It is available in Jira Cloud and Data Center. And when it comes to the tool juxtaposed to advanced roadmaps, the primary object is a Gantt, whereas in advanced roadmaps it is a plan. And the Gantt is built from the structure, again, that you see on the left. And each structure Gantt combo has its own definable scope, hierarchy, views, scenarios, baselines, scheduling and resourcing behavior, and also quick filters. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at Structure and Structure Gantt. So very similar to advanced roadmaps, you have the hierarchy relationship between issues denoted on the left. So this is obviously a structure we've already built. And you have issues rolling up to epics and then subsequently rolling up to an initiative layer. And similar to the advanced roadmaps field section, Structure calls those columns. So I can click this plus icon here and add additional fields and or columns here. On the right side, we have a true Gantt chart. So with regard to date behavior, dates are automatically determined and duration is already set based on the properties of each work item. So if I click into one of these items, let me click into this bug here. There are several options for scheduling on an item by item basis, or in this case, Jira issue by issue basis. And we can observe a fixed duration here by setting it. Or we can set our own duration. We also have the option to toggle between auto and manual scheduling down here. And if you set it to auto, the dates and the duration will be set on the estimate of that particular work item. So while we're over here in the Gantt section, let's talk about dependency behavior. So let me click into this existing dependency here. And so as you would expect, we have four different types of dependencies. So we have start to start, start to finish, finish to start, and finish to finish. And then with an option to configure lead or lag time here. And so again, further highlighting that we have a true Gantt chart. When we talk about critical path, like we talked about within advanced roadmaps, you actually do have an availability of realizing critical path. If I go to the top icon over here on the top right, this bulleted list, you can select critical path and toggle it off and on here. Baselines, yes. So you can have multiple baselines within structure and structured Gantt as you want. You can set as many as you want. And then if I click on no baseline over here on the top right, this is where I could create a new one. And then you can choose the type of baseline that you want to select. In the way of sharing visualizations, there are multiple options. You have export options, and you can add your structure to a Jira or Confluence dashboard, and you would click share up here to realize those options there. Very quickly, so just to kind of show you how robust configuration-wise this application is, I want to show you some of the settings that I think are kind of cool within this app. So if I click the settings icon here in the middle, you have a whole slew of options available to you. So within general, I can set my start day and actually select a calendar that I want to use. I've got some appearance options. There's a ton of scheduling options. So I can configure work estimates. I've got some project or progress calculation options available to me. I've got some manual scheduling settings that I can manipulate: the start date and finish date and milestone date, fixed duration. I can choose to store it in a Gantt chart or some other attributes available to me. So again, you can get pretty granular with how you configure this application in particular. You've got some dependency settings that you can, the ones that we looked at previously within the Gantt chart, you can set your lead and lag time on each of those. And one of the cool features that I definitely want to highlight, because this is also something we've been asked about in engagements and even just quote, how do I kind of slice and dice the data? Well, actually within structure, you have the option to literally have slices of data. So I can create a new slice. And what I think is really, really neat and offers just a wealth of customization is the ability to not only create a new slice by issue type, but also JQL language, which if you're familiar with Jira, JQL stands for Jira Query Language, and you know that essentially it's limitless in its possibilities of being able to pull in data from Jira. So pretty neat option there to create slices of data within structure. All right, let's go back to our structure here and Gantt chart. So let's talk about resourcing behavior, just like what we talked about in advanced roadmaps, which is accessible via this person icon that you see here. And let me actually scroll over to our, oh, my scroll bar is way at the bottom there. So forgive me, I'm having UI issues here. There we go. That's what we want to see. Okay. So we can see hours assigned under the resource usage that you see maybe here, really tiny down here in red. And then if I scroll, you have the option to actually view usage rather in hours or percentage with this toggle over here, which is kind of neat. And then moving over to the resources on the left, we can see Brian's availability if he's selected. And then I click this person settings icon over here. And the properties show the amount of work essentially Brian can do in the way of units. And then we have some other settings like time zone and then also the work calendar that we want to use here. So again, we can use a standard or 24/7 calendar. And we can set our time zones as well. So what I want to highlight here is based on the settings, resource assignment can happen on the individual or team basis. So something really important to note, juxtaposed to the other apps that we're showing you today, resourcing can happen on the individual or team basis. And availability of resources is handled through shared calendars with working hours and time zones, days and holidays, and resources can also be temporarily assigned a percentage reduction or expanded capacity. So tons of resourcing capability within this application to sum it up. Concerning capacity adjustments, you can set resource units as well as work calendar per resource. And then tasks can actually be set with a maximum unit. So if I go back to one of our issues here, I think I can do so by scrolling to the issue. Yeah, here's one we can look at. Yeah, so you can see, actually, we have our max unit setting right here. And then I also have the option to set a default resource, which is kind of neat. And so this determines essentially how much of a resource a task can use or how many people can work on it at a time, which is kind of neat. Okay, so jumping back to our slideshow here. Similar to what I did for advanced roadmaps, I just want to rattle off a few things about functionality or lack thereof within this application. So there are sandbox capabilities for structure. Unfortunately, those are only available in data center, or fortunately, if you're on data center. Another way of putting it is that any changes that you make within structure automatically get pushed back to Jira. So just something to keep in mind. There are several estimation options. You can estimate in story points, time tracking, or formulas. You can also perform automatic conversion between story points and time, which is also pretty cool. Resourcing leveling is available, but that is also a feature that's only available in data center. There are no early start, early finish, late start, late finish constraints. There are no individual level skills capabilities within structured Gantt. You'll see that in big picture momentarily. And there's also no cross-plan resource view. So to kind of tie this up in a nice bow here for structure and structured Gantt, some of the big deciding factors you may be taking into consideration based on what we've shown you is that you do have that option for slices and really showing really granular level data within the plan. There's team and individual resourcing behavior. So that's a big win for a lot of folks that we've worked with. There are multiple baselines, or you can have multiple baselines. You can set duration based on estimates. Structures that by themselves can actually be quite useful. So even if you're not using structure Gantt in addition to structure, even just having the structure app and seeing that roll up to whatever hierarchical relationship you want to have between issues is really, really helpful in and of itself. There aren't any skills built in, which again, I'll show you that momentarily in big picture. Resource leveling, again, as I mentioned, is only in data center. Same thing with sandboxes. There are some great sharing options for visualizations. All right, drum roll. And last but not least, let's talk about big picture and big picture enterprise. And as you can surmise by the ampersand, they are definitely two different applications similar to structure and structure Gantt. Big picture, we kind of talk about it internally here at Valiantus and affectionately call it kind of the Swiss Army knife of PPM tools within the Atlassian ecosystem. It contains a product called Big Gantt, but also includes modules for Agile and program boards, risks, roadmaps, and objectives. There's also an expanded resource view, including workload plans, holiday plans, and skills. There's teams, calendars, and additional reporting if you use the full version of Big Picture. So again, truly the Swiss Army knife of PPM tools. And juxtaposed to advanced roadmaps where you have a plan and structure, you have a Gantt. The primary unit of organization within Big Picture is done in something called a box. And a box is kind of like a plan. It's also kind of like a Jira issue type, and I'll kind of explain that in a moment. And if you get Big Picture Enterprise, you get unlimited box types. So unlimited scenarios, cross-box resource view, model or module renaming rather, tempo integration, since it's the same developer of as tempo, so that's kind of neat if you're already using tempo. Data residency, and then also advanced reports modifications are available to you. And lastly, Big Picture is available both in Jira Cloud and then also in Jira Data Center. So again, Big Picture is structured in boxes, and each box has its own definable scope, hierarchy, views, scenarios, scheduling and resourcing behavior, and then also quick filters. And then interesting feature here, each box can bidirectionally sync with Trello cards. So that might be a big win if you guys are a Trello shop or use Trello internally. You do have some integration there, which is kind of neat. And then box types actually define how boxes can relate to one another with parenting, and also contain template metadata that can be changed once a box is created. So in this way, like I mentioned, they are kind of both like an issue type and then also kind of an issue template if you're familiar with Jira administration. So some example box types. So how would I use a box? A box can be maybe a portfolio, a program, or a program increment or PI, and then or an iteration and align with agility. For more traditional planning, a box could also be a project or a phase or initiative. So with that, let's go ahead and take a brief look here at big picture. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about with big picture is date behavior. So issues appear in a Gantt based on manually updated start and end dates or auto-scheduled dates based on dependency links. It does not look at estimates to determine duration. Referring to scheduling options on a per item basis, you can select top down, bottom up, manual, or locked, and I will actually show you what that looks like just by clicking into one of these issues, and I look at scheduling mode. So again, auto bottom up, auto top down, manual, or locked. So here I can lock it in place. I can set it to manual, or again, by selecting auto bottom up or auto top down, this is where I can have an item inherit or dictate scheduling with either of those settings. So let's talk about dependency behavior. So similar to the other apps, you do see this kind of yellow yarn that is linking or denoting a dependency within our plan. So let me click into that dependency. And just like structure, we have our Gantt dependency types of end to start, end to end, start to start, and start to end. And then we also have this addition of soft links. And in this case, this refers to dependencies via Jira links. So this allows for a traditional Gantt dependency mapping with the addition of allowing teams to kind of drive those dependencies with native Jira linking relationships. It's kind of a neat extra layer there. Some other settings available to you are being able to set your lag time and also ASAP mode, which kind of allows for more looser scheduling while still kind of respecting your link type there. So when we are talking about sandboxes in this application, they're available in big picture, but you're limited to one private and one not private scenario. And so if I click on live up here, this is where I can create a new scenario and again, toggle whether or not it's private or not private here. You have the option to upgrade to Big Picture Enterprise to leverage multiple sandboxes. So that is something available to you. You're not just limited to those if you were to upgrade. So in the realm of estimation, time tracking is done by using Jira's original estimate or remaining estimate fields, or by story points. So automatic conversion between story points and time is available, just to note that. And it's also configurable by box. Critical path, yes, critical path is available. And if I actually click this eye icon up here, this is where I would toggle that off and on. Similarly, baselines are also available where I can toggle those off and on here as well. And you're only allowed, something to note too, you're only allowed one baseline per issue, and this is because it saves to a baseline Jira field. So something just to note there as well. When we're talking about early start, early finish, late start, late finish constraints, unfortunately, those aren't available within Big Picture. And jumping really quickly to sharing visualizations like we've talked about in the other tools, you're somewhat limited, at least in this flavor of Big Picture and Big Picture Gantt here. But you can share what is called, you can share, I'm so sorry, visualizations where you can share a view, but you need an additional add-on essentially to do more than this. So something to consider there. All right, let's talk about resourcing behavior. So we can turn on the resourcing view at the bottom by clicking this people icon right here. And so down here, we can see some unassigned information. We can also, on the left, and then assignment per resource on the right over here. And if I click on Brian's workload, for example, over here on the right, we can see total workload, and then also his remaining capacity over here. So kind of a nice view there. And something important to note here, so resourcing in big picture is done by the individual only. So just tying it all together, advanced roadmaps, it's on the team level only. Structure and structure Gantt, it's team and individual level. Big picture is only on the individual level. Availability is handled through something called a shared workload plan, a holiday plan, and then you've got some individual absence adjustments that you can make as well. So on the individual resource level, on a different menu or within a different menu, you can kind of change where individuals are available. So that's kind of neat. Capacity adjustments are also done through a shared workload plan, and then it's applied to an individual. So for example, you've got your standard 8-hour workday plan, and then you could actually assign that to each individual should you desire to do so. So I've been alluding to it throughout the presentation. I just want to talk about a different feature that's available in Big Picture and not technically available in the other tools, and that's called the skills feature. So to highlight that, let me actually jump out to an issue within Jira, and we'll talk about this briefly here. Let's see. So in Big Picture, you can define skills. So you determine which skills a work item requires. So for example, you could have a developer or a project manager skill, for example. And once you have a skill applied, you can use this feature called Find the Perfect Match, which essentially takes in to account individual workload and finds the, quote, perfect person to assign this task to. So if I go into Big Picture Skills here, you can see I've already selected a skill of developer, but I could also see what other skills are available where I have tester, project manager, or developer. And then just like I said, you can click on this Find the Perfect Match, and then it's going to recommend individuals based on those criteria that I shared previously. So kind of a neat feature that's attractive to a lot of folks, honestly, that we've talked to with this tool. So wrapping up big picture, just a couple of other things to be aware of. There's no resource leveling within the tool, and there's a cross-plan resource view if you leverage Big Picture Enterprise. So that would only be available within that upgraded version. All right, let's go back to our slide deck here. So just like the other tools, just want to kind of rattle off some deciding factors just to kind of walk away with. This is truly multiple tools in one. You get a risk module, a program board if you're practicing safe, and a calendar. So it's pretty neat. You have cross-plan resource views. You do have that skills functionality that I just showed you, which is kind of neat. You have resource contouring, no resource leveling, and then you have somewhat limited configurations within a box. You really can configure by Jira project versus structure, where you have that multiple slices capability that I showed earlier. And then last but not least, you actually do have to purchase an additional add-on to export visualizations. So definitely something to consider there in line with the other tools. All right, and I'm going to hand it back to Jackie to talk about Jira Align.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thanks, Jackie.
I learn something every time you go through that.
Oh, you're too kind.
They're very robust.
Yes,
they really are. They're great.
There's a lot there.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked at the beginning about how I was just going to touch on Jira Align briefly. Want you to be aware of it and when it might be a good option, but again, very complicated and whole other webinars just on this alone. So I apologize. Nope, no problem. All right, so let's just dig in here. So Jira Align is actually a separate application other than Jira, and it talks via web connectors. A couple of the solutions that Sam just ran through were apps that you add on. And then, of course, as he talked about, advanced roadmaps is inherent in Jira itself if you have premium. But this is something totally separate because it is such a robust tool. This is an example of a program board. Um, if you practice safe methodology at your company, this probably looks pretty familiar or something similar to it. But this is not necessarily geared for just companies that practice safe. It is methodology agnostic, but you probably are following some sort of scaled methodology like LESS or DAD, SAFE, something like that. Maybe Spotify. So it gives you that nice view of maybe a level up or a couple of levels up from the team. It gives you a lot of great options for your features like roadmaps. You can link your OKRs very easily, which I know are a very hot topic right now. Different options for program boards, portfolio views, and great dependency management. I will emphasize that this is a tool with a little bit higher price point, and because it is complicated, because it's robust, we typically suggest that there'll be at least 3 months of time for a consultant to help you set it up as well. So this is very appropriate if you have large company, large portfolio, or maybe even multiple portfolios. All right, back to our shameless plugs. Hopefully, this was helpful. If any of this strikes you as something that your company could benefit from and you'd like to talk to any of us further, we'd love to hear from you. As we've said a couple of times, we are an Atlassian Platinum partner, which means that we help companies all the time configure, move, train on their Jira. So we offer it all. Let me get to this piece. So one of the trainings that we offer actually is a Jira Align bootcamp. If you are interested in learning more about using that tool as an option for organizing your portfolio, we have a QR code down there and right here on the screen. You'll see where my mouse is. And we have a code for 20% off the bootcamp class if you are interested. I will say though, I think that the surest bet, because we were having a challenge with buying from the website yesterday, is go ahead and reach out in the chat, and Kylie will help you make sure that you can get signed up for that. And we have some time now, so let's open it up for questions. I think Kylie was saying that there were actually a couple in the chat. We can ignore that one.
I think.
Oh, my apologies.
Oh, yeah. And then the QA. Yeah, there we go.
So there was.
Okay, so we've got some questions here. Okay. Yeah, okay, yeah, and that's something I neglected to show you guys, so forgive me. But there was a question about adjusting time periods within your advanced roadmaps plan. So let me actually show that advanced roadmaps window again. Cancel, we don't want to use auto scheduler right now. So yeah, something I didn't show you is down here on the right, you can actually change your kind of span of time. So right now, we're looking at months. You can get as granular as looking at individual weeks, which would help actually with your sprint planning potentially. You can also adjust to quarters to look at kind of more of a macro level, and even go out to years. What's really, really cool when looking at scheduling behavior out here too is you can actually create a custom range as well. So some great options there. Okay. Yes. Okay, so how do we visualize different hierarchy levels? Yeah, great question. So let me go out to our initiative planning, and this is an advanced roadmaps, I'm sorry. You can actually click on issue over here, or I'm sorry, filters rather, and choose your hierarchy. So what's really, really nice is you obviously have that plan or that view setting that I showed you earlier where you can look at different views that you create. But even within those views, you can adjust the hierarchy. So let's say I wanted to look at just the roll up of story to epic and kind of hide those layers above epic. I can do so just by adjusting my filters here. There's also a bunch of other filter opportunities out here in advanced roadmaps where you can filter by component or system fields, for example, dependencies. So that's also a really robust option there. Also, something we get asked about a lot, and actually, funny enough, somebody's asking about in the chat right now, is how do you group by team in any of these tools? And since I'm in advanced roadmaps right now, this is something we actually had recently with a client that we helped configure, where you're able to group by individual teams. So if you have your teams built out, you can actually view the data within your plan group by team, which is really, really helpful when we have any kind of team planning sessions on any kind of regular basis. So kind of neat functionality there where I can look at just the issues that are pertaining to my team. Okay, so we have, let's see. Yeah, can you toggle the Gantt chart off and on if you have structure and structure Gantt? Yeah, absolutely. So let me pull up structure here. And you would do so over here on the right. If I click on this ellipses icon, so going back to this idea that structures in and of themselves are really, really helpful, standalone, you can actually turn off resource view here so you can see this. If I go to the ellipses in the top right, I can look at just a single grid here and look just at my structure. And this would be really helpful, honestly, if you had a bunch of fields that you wanted to look at. You wouldn't be inhibited by the plan that's over here on the right. But really, really nice if you want to just zero in on the structure that you've built specifically. And then you could toggle the Gantt back on right here as well within the same menu. Okay, I think we've still got some time here. So one other question that we have here. Let me go into, let's go into advanced roadmaps. So we had a question about how are you pulling in the data from Jira into advanced roadmaps? So that's a great question. So if I were to go into plan settings, and again, just further highlighting that this is truly a visualization tool that is driven by Jira data, you can go into the plan settings and then click issue sources rather. And then from here, what's really, really nice is I can select whether I want to pull data from a board, a project, or a filter. So again, going back to Jira query language or just issue filters in general, the opportunities are limitless for how I want to pull that data into advanced roadmaps. Typically what we see are how we configure this for teams, and going back to what Jackie said earlier on in the presentation, we don't want to inhibit how teams are working to date. We want them to continue working on working within their existing projects rather. And so what's really, really nice is we can create a plan without necessarily messing with anything within their projects and pull in data just from the team's boards or team projects. And then a lot of times what we suggest is you have kind of a scaled epics or scaled initiatives project that kind of lives on its own as a separate entity for planning purposes, but you could pull in as much or as little data as you want here. So pretty neat functionality there. Okay, great. Is it possible to add the bank holidays according to region and get it automatically adjusted? You know what? I don't know off the top of my head, but that is a great question. I'm more than happy to research that and potentially get back to you after this class. That's a great question. Let's see, can we create a network diagram by adding task duration, start and end date, or do we have to manually do that for each activity? Also a great question that I don't know the answer to at this point, but that is something worth exploring.
And maybe specific to, I think we get these after the fact, so apologies. I feel like the bank holiday question may have been when you were reviewing structure.
Yeah.
And I think that's true for big picture, although I
Mhm.
don't know if it's automatically updated.
Yes.
But I don't recall us ever doing that with structure.
Mhm. Right.
And the second one, I'm not sure if that was for which app that was for.
Mhm. Yes.
Okay, and Kylie said that she can send over the questions via email. So
Absolutely.
please just leave your email address and we'd be happy to get back to you.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Great.
All right.
All
Want to take
right.
us home, Jackie?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we really appreciate everyone's time. Looks like we are officially out of questions. So if you think of something right after you hang up, please make a note of the email addresses so you can reach out to us. We also have some links here. So on LinkedIn, again, some QR codes. Feel free to reach out to Sam or myself. We also have emails listed. I know Kylie put her email in the chat. We'd love to hear from you if you have any follow-on questions or if you have any questions about something that's even loosely related to the Atlassian products or training. We are more than happy to talk at any point. So thanks for the time today, everyone.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Have a great day.
Bye.